Today's story is not just about tragedy. It's about a mother's rage, the silence of town, and what happens when justice is ignored for far too long. Leila Vargas was only 16 when she was killed during a midnight police raid at the wrong house. Her mother, Isabel, waited for answers that never came. What she did next stunned the entire nation. This isn't just a story of revenge. It's a story of memory, grief, and the power of a mother's love when the system fails her child. If this story moves you, we ask one thing, like this video. Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you never miss the real stories that challenge everything we think we know about justice. In the early hours of a rainy April morning, Lakeview Township was jolted awake by sirens, searchlights, and gunfire. It was supposed to be a routine drug raid. At least, that's what the Lakeview SWAT team claimed. But something went horribly wrong. 16-year-old Leila Vargas was asleep in her bedroom when the front door was torn open. Her mother, Isabel Vargas, screamed as officers stormed the living room. Within seconds, a shot rang out. Leila never made it out of bed. The bullet struck her in the chest. The officer responsible, SWAT Commander Cole Reynolds, insisted he saw a weapon. Investigators found nothing. No gun, no drugs, no suspect. The house had been wrongly targeted. The warrant had the wrong address. The official report called it a tragic mistake. The media ran it for 2 days. The department offered condolences and paid leave. And then the system moved on. But Isabel didn't. She stood by her daughter's empty bed every night, reliving the silence that followed the gunshot. Leila had wanted to be an architect. Her drawings still hung on the fridge. The model bridge she was building from popsicle sticks remained unfinished on her desk. That spring, the world kept spinning. But Isabel's world had stopped. And when the justice system failed to deliver answers, she quietly began building something else. A plan. Leila Vargas was never ordinary. Even as a child, she saw the world differently. Where others saw sidewalks, she saw patterns and cracks. Where others passed bridges without thought, she sketched their angles on the back of napkins. Her heroes weren't movie stars or singers. They were architects, Zaha Hadid, Maya Lin, Frank Gehry. Isabel still kept the first blueprint Leila ever drew, a lopsided sketch of a lakeside community center she imagined, complete with a slide between floors and a rooftop garden. Leila was 8 years old. Their home was filled with these sketches. Plans for cities, redesigns of public schools, drawings of safer housing. She spoke often of giving people beauty and strength in the same walls. Everyone deserves a place that makes them feel powerful, she once told her mother. Leila read books on engineering for fun. She aced geometry. Her high school guidance counselor once said she'd never seen someone so young map out a life so clearly. She had applied early to the Midwestern School of Architecture. Her acceptance letter arrived a week before her death. Isabel had surprised her with a cake that night. Leila had cried, not from the sugar, but from the validation. She was going to build something real. They had traditions, Leila and Isabel. Friday night movie marathons with popcorn, measuring the house together, imagining renovations they'd make when Leila became licensed. Isabel would pretend to hate the teal-colored paint her daughter suggested for the kitchen, but she had secretly bought a can to surprise her. There was no father in the picture. Leila once said she didn't miss the idea. She had everything in her mother. And Isabel? She had built her entire identity around keeping Leila safe, supported, and soaring. So when the world shattered that night during the raid, it wasn't just a daughter she lost. It was a future, a purpose, an entire architecture meaning collapsed into rubble. The house remained untouched for months. Leila's bed was still made. Her laptop still open to a 3D rendering software. Her pencil shavings still sat in a cup beside her drafting table. Isabel couldn't bear to throw anything away. Instead, she began cataloging it, photographing every sketch, labeling each blueprint, as if building an archive of someone's history had already forgotten. Neighbors brought food, reporters brought microphones, lawyers brought paperwork, but none of them brought justice. And as spring turned to summer, Isabel stopped waiting. She started studying. It began with silence, not just the absence of sound, but a deliberate retreat. Isabel shut off her phone. She stopped answering the door. She closed her social media accounts, let mail pile up on the porch, and ignored every well-meaning knock from friends or clergy. Inside, her house darkened. Curtains drawn, lights off, clocks unplugged. Time no longer mattered, only focus. Isabel began erasing herself. She shaved her long black hair into a crop cut, dyed at Auburn, traded her loose sweaters and jeans for gym wear and crisp polos. She practiced a new smile in the mirror, one that didn't feel like a broken branch. She found a new town, 2 counties over. There, she became Elena Torres, a volunteer, a mentor, a woman with a quiet past and a hopeful heart. She forged a resume, fabricated references, downloaded a background check template, and doctored it. She applied to the Wilderness Youth Foundation, a program designed for at-risk teens and those dealing with trauma. They needed staff. She needed a role. And within 2 weeks, Elena Torres was approved to begin shadowing at the center. She studied everyone there, especially the teens, learned who was quiet, who was dominant, who needed praise, who wanted space. But she watched one boy most of all, 17-year-old Eli Reynolds. Tall, awkward, the kind of boy who flinched when doors slammed, the kind who never asked questions in group. The surname had caught her eye on a roster, Reynolds, and when she looked into his pale blue eyes, she knew this was Cole Reynolds' son, the boy whose father had called Leila's death a misunderstanding. Eli barely acknowledged her at first. He came late, left early, mumbled answers. But Isabel was patient. She never pushed. She offered snacks, complimented his sketches, mentioned her own love for lakes and hiking trails. Over time, Eli began lingering after group, helping clean, asking about art. He never spoke of his family. She never asked. Instead, she became his constant, a warm voice, a listening ear, a faceless helper with a gentle touch. To the program staff, she was a success story. To Eli, she was maybe the first adult who didn't expect him to be anything but present. But to Isabel, Eli was the next blueprint. It was a crisp October morning when Isabel proposed a hike. She called it a mentorship outing, just the 2 of them. A quiet day in the hills, a break from noise and group activities. Eli said yes without hesitation. They packed trail mix, Gatorade, and sketch pads. Isabel wore a gray zip-up and hiking boots. Eli brought his headphones and a hand-me-down backpack. The center signed off on the trip, grateful for the bonding. No one questioned it. They drove for nearly 2 hours, leaving behind the hum of the township. Dirt roads gave way to gravel, then the forest trails rarely patrolled. Cell service dropped after the 3rd fork. They hiked in silence for the first mile. Trees whispered, birds scattered. The ground was soft beneath their feet, layered with fallen leaves. Eli asked once why they stopped so far out. Isabel told him the best views are always beyond the obvious paths. They reached a clearing surrounded by pine, a natural circle formed by time and erosion. The sun filtered through the branches above, catching in the mist. Isabel told him to sit, to breathe, to draw. He smiled faintly, pulled out his sketch pad. For a few moments, the world was still. Then she stood behind him. Her hands didn't tremble. The gun was small, silent, 1 shot, just above the right ear. He never saw it coming. There were no defensive wounds, no signs of struggle, Just a neat, quick execution in the middle of nowhere. She laid him gently on the pine-covered ground, folded his hands, placed a sketch pad beside him. His last drawing, a crooked outline of a tree reaching for light. By nightfall, she was gone. Eli Reynolds was reported missing 2 days later. Panic grew by the hour. When his body was discovered by a pair of hikers, the news consumed Lakeview. No suspects, no motive. Only one thing was left at the scene: a folded photo of Leila Vargas, tucked beneath Eli's cold hands. News of Eli Reynolds' murder broke like a thunderclap. The police precinct went into lockdown. Reporters crowded outside the Reynolds home. Protesters returned to the courthouse steps, this time demanding more than reform. They wanted blood. Cole Reynolds was at his desk when he received the call. He collapsed before the sentence finished. The man who had once led operations with robotic confidence now sat curled on the floor of the break room, unresponsive. His badge was removed that night. Officially, it was a leave of absence. Internally, it was containment. Cole spiraled quickly. He stopped shaving. His uniform hung in his closet untouched. He refused to speak with the department psychologist. Instead, he sat in Eli's bedroom for hours, the lights off, hands clutching the boy's old hoodie like it was a lifeline. Clara Reynolds, his wife, tried to hold it together. She answered calls. She signed the funeral papers. She tried to keep Emma, their daughter, focused on school. But the grief was volcanic. Their home, once pristine, filled with muffled cries and slamming doors. Meanwhile, Isabel was already watching. Emma Reynolds was 19, a sophomore at River Valley College, dance team captain. Her social media overflowed with glitter, poses, and playlists. She had no idea what was coming. Isabel followed her online for weeks, tracked her routines, morning coffees, Tuesday rehearsals, Sunday brunches. She mapped it all, and just like with Eli, she began outlining the next phase of her blueprint. Prom night, Emma wore a silver dress that caught the light like crystal. Her friends showered her with compliments, and her Instagram Live buzzed with hearts and emojis. The dance was held at the Mountain Vista Lodge, an upscale venue nestled in the foothills, chandeliers, lakeside views, and a terrace wrapped in fairy lights. Isabel was already there, dressed as catering staff, hair tucked into a tight bun, face masked, hands gloved. She blended in easily, just another server among many. She watched Emma from a distance, smiling, dancing, spinning in a world untouched by consequence. When the party ended, Emma and her date walked to her car. Isabel followed in a separate vehicle, tailing them to the after-party, a lakeside rental home 10 miles away. The music was loud, the laughter louder. Nobody noticed when Emma stepped outside to take a call, or when she disappeared into the night. The next morning, her friends called her phone dozens of times. It rang beneath the surface of the lake. Her body was found 2 days later, tucked gently inside a canoe that had drifted to shore. Her silver dress still shimmered, though her skin had gone pale and blue. There were no marks of struggle, no signs of trauma, just a folded sketch inside her dress pocket, Leila Vargas's final drawing, a design for a suspension bridge titled Hope, and scrawled on the back, a message in block letters: 3 down, 1 to go. Cole Reynolds barely recognized a man in the mirror. His face, once clean-shaven and stern, was now buried under a graying beard. His eyes, once sharp with command, were bloodshot, hollowed by grief. He had stopped wearing his uniform, stopped shaving, stopped answering the door. The department officially listed him on permanent medical leave. But the truth was simpler. He was broken. In just over a year, he had buried both of his children. His wife no longer spoke to him, except through clenched whispers. She had moved into the guest room, Her eyes no longer held love or pity, only quiet resentment. He had built a life on duty, order, and protection, and all of it had crumbled. Cole began sleeping with a pistol under his pillow. He scanned the windows at night. Paranoia seeped into his every step. He believed someone was watching, because someone was. Isabel Vargas hadn't disappeared. She had only grown quieter. She knew the final stage had to be different. More than loss, it had to be exposure. So she began mailing packages, anonymous ones, to local journalists, to the police department's internal affairs office, to Cole's remaining extended family. Each package contained a photo of Leila Vargas, a copy of the original raid warrant with the wrong address highlighted, a drawing from Leila's archives, and most damning, a timeline of each death that followed. The public didn't believe it at first, but leaks began to spread, whispers of revenge. The town turned inward. Talk radio debated if the Reynolds family was cursed or hunted. One night, Cole drove himself to the lake, the same one where Emma had been found. He sat in the car for hours, the engine running, his service pistol on the passenger seat. A fisherman spotted the vehicle at dawn. Empty, Cole Reynolds was found walking into the lake, barefoot, murmuring prayers no one could understand. When responders pulled him from the cold water, he didn't fight them. He just whispered one phrase. She built this. He was admitted to Briar Hill Psychiatric Hospital later that day. No charges filed. No interview given. And just like that, the last pillar of the Reynolds family had collapsed. But Isabel wasn't done. The delivery came on a Thursday morning. A discreet brown box left at the doorstep of the Reynolds residence. No return address. No delivery confirmation. Clara Reynolds brought it inside without hesitation. Inside the box, a bottle of Bordeaux, wrapped in black tissue paper and a small handwritten note. It read, "For the nights the silence is too loud. An old friend." Clara stared at the message for several minutes. Her first instinct was suspicion, but exhaustion won. She poured a glass that night, then another. By the time she reached the bottom of the bottle, she felt nothing, which was exactly what Isabel intended. The poison wasn't fast-acting. Isabel wasn't interested in spectacle, just a whisper of something foreign, something bitter beneath the tannins, a compound designed to slow the heart while masking itself as fatigue. Clara collapsed in her bed before midnight. When she was found the next morning, the coroner noted no signs of trauma, just a peaceful stillness. Like sleep, an autopsy was delayed due to backlog, and when it was performed weeks later, the metabolization was complete. Official cause of death, unknown, but the note remained. Detectives studied the handwriting, compared it to known samples. Nothing matched, and beneath the wine bottle on the kitchen counter, another folded sketch was discovered. Leila's blueprint for a dream home. A sprawling, sunlit space with wide windows, gentle arches, and a kitchen big enough for 3 generations. Written on the back, everyone deserves a place that makes them feel powerful. In the final days of autumn, Isabel Vargas sat alone in her dimly lit living room, surrounded by paper, envelopes, and photographs. The room was silent, except for the scratch of pen on paper. She wrote slowly, deliberately, pouring 16 years of motherhood into ink. Each letter began the same way. My name is Isabel Vargas. My daughter was Leila. She was everything. Then came the story, the raid, the lies, the aftermath. But more than that, each letter held a mirror, directed not just at the guilty, but at the complicit, the judge who signed the faulty warrant, The school counselor who downplayed Leila's fear of police presence in their neighborhood. The reporter who called the death a tragedy, but failed to ask follow-up questions. The neighbor who moved away but never checked in. Isabel sent one letter to every person who, in her eyes, could have made a different choice. Some letters included photos. Others held drawings. One had a copy of Leila's college acceptance letter. Another, a fragment of her final architecture model. She mailed them all the same day, using post boxes across 3 counties to avoid detection. None of them were signed with threats. Just one line beneath her name. We were more than a headline. By the time the letters reached their recipients, Isabel was already gone. She packed a single bag, placed in the back of her rusted sedan, and drove north along the lake road. She passed the old bridge Leila loved, past the art supply store they used to visit, past the bench where Leila had once confessed her fear of not being enough. She drove until the road ended. At the lake's edge, Isabel stepped out into the wind, holding only one final letter. This one was for Leila. She placed it in a mason jar, wrapped in plastic, and set afloat. The waves accepted it gently, pulling it further from shore. She watched until it disappeared. Then, quietly, Isabel sat beneath the tree where they used to picnic, pulled a blanket around her shoulders, and closed her eyes. She never opened them again. Her body was found 3 days later. Next to her, a worn photograph of Leila and a final blueprint titled, "Still Standing." Lakeview Township wasn't known for soul-searching. It was a kind of place where neighbors waved but didn't ask questions, where tragedies faded fast, swept under the rhythm of Friday night games, Sunday sermons, and steady small talk at the diner. But Isabel's letters changed something. The judge who signed the warrant resigned quietly, citing personal reasons. The school counselor requested a transfer. The local news station aired a 10-minute editorial titled, "Too Late to Listen." Even the chief of police issued a public statement, not of defense, but of regret. It was the first time the department officially named Leila Vargas. They called her a victim, a young woman failed by protocol and perception. A mural went up outside the town library, funded by donations, painted by a group of local artists and students. It depicted Leila standing on a bridge of her own design, arms open, hair swept by wind, blueprints scattered in the air like wings. At the base of the mural, a plaque read, "In memory of what was lost, in warning of what we must never ignore again." Every year since, on the anniversary of her death, townspeople gather at the lake. They read passages from Leila's writings. They float candles. They say her name aloud. Not everyone comes. Some still call it vigilante justice. Others call Isabel a murderer. But more and more, people call her something else. A mother who was left no other way to be heard. In the years that followed, state legislation was quietly passed, reforms to warrant verification, oversight committees, new training for officers. None of it could bring Leila back. But maybe, just maybe, it could keep the next blueprint from becoming an obituary. And that, Isabel would have understood. Isabel's house had sat quiet for weeks. After her death, no one rushed to claim it. No one was made public. The property fell under county review, pending auction. But before the paperwork could clear, a housing inspector sent to assess the building made a discovery. In Leila's old room, beneath the floorboards, he found a latch. Behind it, a narrow crawl space lined with plastic containers and binders. Dozens of them. Inside, each one were records. Photocopies of the police report. Transcript from Isabel's calls to officials. Handwritten logs detailing the timeline of her transformation into Elena Torres. Travel receipts. Supply purchases. Even the forged references she used to gain access to Eli Reynolds. But there was more. Audio recordings, labeled by date, Day 1, silence begins. Day 45, he trusts me now. Day 103, she's next. Each recording revealed a piece of her mind, her rage, her grief, her meticulous calculation, but also her doubt, her heartbreak, her need to do something that felt like justice. One recording near the end stood out, Isabel's voice weary but calm. If you're hearing this, it's because someone found a room I built for her, for me, for all of us failed by the way things are. I don't want forgiveness. I want remembering. I want every mother who has ever buried a child without answers to know they aren't crazy. The world really did forget them, but I didn't. The tapes were handed over to a local journalist. What followed was a multi-part investigative podcast titled Blueprint.